Hello everybody, my name is Red, aka the Redform Gamer, and today, I am finally releasing Ace. Ace is a audiobook I've been working on for many years now. It went from being originally a normal book to now, an audiobook. What it's about? Well, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say what it's about because I don't want to spoil anything. I want to leave it all up to surprises. So why don't you, if you enjoy this, why don't you go down into like the bottom of this video, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell, make sure it's rung to get all notifications for this channel. And why don't you go and, when this is over, leave a comment telling me what you think. But without further ado, let's finally get into Ace. Ace by the Redform Gamer. Prologue. Good and evil have always been after each other's necks, ever since their creation by their father, neutrality. They have been at war for eons upon eons. They have had many battles, however, because of hope and corruption, neither can kill each other. Because they reincarnate through hope and corruption, the balance of neutrality will remain intact. This story, and all following it, are all part of the bloodiest and fiercest conflicts good and evil will ever have. There once was a happy family called the Masons. This family consisted of Gregory Mason, a 32-year-old man and the owner of one of the largest technology companies of all time, Mason Industries. Wendy Mason, a 30-year-old woman who is a loving wife to Gregory and a stay-at-home mom. And finally, 9-year-old Simon Mason, a relatively smart kid with a love for magic and illusions. But this family is about to experience a great tragedy that will give birth to a hero of good. Chapter 1. Tragedy. One warm September afternoon in the city of Redform, Florida, an island off the coast of Miami, was the headquarters of Mason Industries, the largest technology company in the world, owned by Gregory Mason. This particular afternoon, the Masons decided to go on a picnic in St. John's Park after Gregory finished his work. "Hey, Mom," Simon said to his mother while they drove up to the Mason Industries compound. "Yes," replied Wendy. "Can I show you a magic trick?" "Not right now, sweetie. We're almost there. So when we get there, you can show both me and Dad." "Oh, okay then." Their minivan pulled up to a security booth. Sitting in the booth was a security guard eating a donut and reading a newspaper with a name tag that read, Johnson, Darren. Darren was an extremely kind person. Everyone liked him, and he always brightened people's days. "Howdy, Mrs. Mason," he said happily. "I'll gladly open the gates for you guys. Oh, and Simon, I'd love to see one of your magic tricks later." Darren then proceeded to open the gate for the two and let them drive in. Once inside, they met up with Gregory and got ready to leave for their picnic, when suddenly an alarm blared through the building, and a voice came over the speaker. "Attention all Mason Industries personnel. This is not a drill. We are under attack by unknown assailants. Please report to the nearest panic bunker. Again, this is not a drill." At that moment, the mic cut out, and the sound of a gunshot supposedly killing the guard. The Masons rushed to the panic bunker, terrified. While in the bunker, they heard gunfire and screams from outside. Hiding in the bunker with them included several scientists, many engineers, and a few security guards. Soon after the gunfire stopped on their floor, at least, they heard from the other side, "Two porta qui flare off, nuke, ita mi domain." Then they heard a clicking, a sound similar to a Clash H2 breaching explosive, an explosive that was made by Mason Industries and only cleared for use by the military. Being set to explode. Tres, duo, unos, ignitis in formanitis. Suddenly, the doors to the bunker blew off. No one could see anything due to the large amounts of smoke made by the explosion. All anyone could see were muzzle flashes in the smoke. "Dad! Dad, where are you?" Simon yelled through the smoke, when suddenly he was grabbed by a man's hand. It was Gregory. "Simon, are you okay?" "Yes, Dad," Simon replied. "Where's Mom?" "I don't know. We just have to stay hidden until those men are gone. So stay calm, okay?" Gregory replied. Simon nodded in response and tried to stay calm, holding back tears all the while. Soon the smoke cleared, revealing the many dead bodies of some of the people who were in the bunker. "In venir reliquis eus et elis ad me," said the man who seemed to be the leader of the attackers. This man was wearing all black. His boots, trench coat, even his mask was all black, except for the opaque red eyes of his mask. His followers were all wearing the same thing, except their mask had transparent white eyes, instead of opaque red eyes. The man's followers searched the bunker and found the survivors: Gregory, Wendy, Simon, a few engineers, and a scientist. "Et interfelicit illis versus acceptus caprice," the leader said to his followers. They seemed to be speaking Latin. They then lined all the survivors up and started executing with the bullet to the back of the head, one by one. Eventually, only the Masons were left alive. As one of the men put their gun to Wendy's head, Gregory leaped up and tackled the assailant, beating him until he was knocked out. All of the man's followers then drew their weapons at Gregory. The leader of the masked men chuckled while clapping slowly. "Ah, I see we have a hero on our hands," said the man arrogantly. "Do you know what happens to heroes in this world, Mr. Mason?" "Who are you, and how do you know my name?" Gregory replied angrily. Everyone knows you, Mr. Mason, and I am but a humble servant of chaos, but you may refer to me as Marksman." "So what are you gonna do? Just kill us?" Gregory replied. "Good question, Mr. Mason. I see why you're one of the smartest mortals on Earth. That was indeed the plan at first, but I like you, full of anger and hate towards me. Reminds me of my brother." Marksman replied, chuckling. "So we are going to play a little game." As he says this, he pulls out a revolver from his holster hidden by his trench coat. "I'm going to load 2 bullets into this revolver, and I'm going to first fire at myself, then at you, then at your wife, and finally at your son. If I die, you all get to live. But if I live, one of you will have to bury the other 2. Marksman pointed the gun at his head, then pulled the trigger. Nothing. Then he fired at Gregory. Nothing. Then at Wendy. The gun fired. Wendy screamed for a second before the bullet pierced her head. Simon yelled in despair, and Gregory could feel nothing but anger. Gregory lunged at Marksman, punching at his mask with as much force as possible. The mask made his knuckles bleed. However, Marksman only got a slight nosebleed. Marksman wiped the blood off his chin and looked at it as it soaked into his dark leather glove. "Per reliquere unus alterum occidere," he said, without his usual arrogant demeanor, but with one of annoyance. One of his followers nodded and stabbed Simon with a serrated knife in the chest. Chapter 2. A Promise to Keep. "No!" Gregory yelled, holding his son in his arms, trying to help his son survive the fatal wound to the chest, as Simon began to bleed out. "Don't die on me, Simon. Please!" By now, Marksman and his followers had left, and the emergency services had arrived. Gregory heard the sirens of the police cars and ambulances, and yelled out for help. Some paramedics and police officers ran into the bunker to see who was yelling. The paramedics tried to stabilize Simon until they got a stretcher to take him to an ambulance,
into the hospital. Soon, more paramedics came with a stretcher. With them was Red Thorn Chief of Police, Zachary Johnson, who was a close friend of Gregory's. The paramedics loaded Simon into a stretcher and put him into an ambulance while Gregory rode in the back. As the ambulance left the scene, Simon looked over to his father. "Dad?" Gregory looked over to him and knelt to his level. "Don't worry, Simon. I won't let you die. I can't," he said with tears in his eyes. "Dad, I saw it," Simon continued. I saw. Some things seemed to distract Simon off in the corner of the ambulance. His eyes widened. Beep, beep, beep. The heart monitor flatlined. The paramedics tried to use a defibrillator, but to no avail. Simon was dead. Gregory, tears filling his eyes, was speechless. His son had just died. No, he thought. He didn't die. He was murdered. Murdered by that monster. A few weeks later, a funeral was held for Simon and Wendy. Among the attendants were Zachary, Gregory's sister Holly, Holly's boyfriend Lucas Cypress, Gibson Holland, a family friend to the Masons and CEO of Holland Laboratories, whose brother had been buried earlier in the week, also due to Marksman's attack, Gibson's husband, Wendy's family, which included her mother, brother, and her sister. Of course, among these family friends and familiar faces, there were many reporters and journalists just waiting to get their next big story. After others had paid their respects to the deceased Masons, it was Gregory's turn. Wendy and Simon were the lights of my life. They kept me going when things got tough. If they were here today, they would have told us to keep our chins up and stay positive. Simon always brightened up people's day with his magic tricks. Wendy was the greatest wife a man could have asked for. Loyal, trusting. Gregory excused himself as he began to tear up. After the funeral, Gregory visited their grave. He had bought them a family grave, so when they die, they will all be together forever. "I'm sorry, Simon, Wendy," Gregory said, laying 2 roses, the native flower of red thorn, after which the island was named, at their grave. "I couldn't keep my promise. But now I'm going to promise you both something. I will kill Marksman and avenge your deaths, even if it kills me. This promise I will keep." Chapter 3. Rebuilding. For most of that year, Gregory couldn't do anything. He couldn't find the will to do anything. He didn't know how he would deliver his promise. He wasn't even sure if he could. Gregory sought out therapy and found that it had no effect. He still sought vengeance for his fallen family. He began to think of how he could deliver on his promise. Because of the attack, Mason Industries was severely crippled, so Gregory decided to negotiate a deal with Gibson to merge Mason Industries and Holland Laboratories into Mason and Holland Incorporated. Gibson, of course, agreed, making both companies much stronger. That year, Gregory decided to watch a movie. Not just any old movie. He decided to watch The Illusionist, Simon's favorite movie. The movie is about a man who is a magician by day, but a vigilante by night. And this gave him an idea. He now knew how he could deliver his promise. He would become a vigilante to kill Marksman. Gregory started making preparations to become a vigilante. But what would he call himself? Simon's favorite card in his deck was the Ace of Spades. He never really had a reason as to why it was his favorite. It just was. So in honor of his lost son, Gregory decided to become the Ace. The preparations were set. He was going to train around the world for 9 to 10 years to become the ultimate crime fighter under the fake name of Simon Asen. Chapter 4. The Assassin. Gregory's first stop was to Canada, to find and train under the legendary assassin Derek Jones. He searched all over Canada, Montreal, Quebec, Winnipeg, with no luck. One day, while researching French to allow him to communicate easily, someone knocked on the door of the motel room he was staying in. Gregory opened the door, and there he was, Derek Jones, a world-class assassin, at his door. "Looking for me?" Derek said arrogantly. "You know, no one has ever searched for me this long. They usually give up in a month, but you seem determined. What do you want me for?" "I want to learn from you. Be your protege," Gregory replied. "Well," Derek replied, stretching his back, "I am getting on in the years, and I won't be able to do this much longer." "What's your name, kid?" "Simon. Simon Nason," Gregory replied, using his fake name. "Well, Simon, I'll gladly teach you all I know. I need a successor, and you seem like the perfect choice." Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." "Well, let's get to work." Derek then took Gregory to the middle of the woods. "Where are we?" Gregory asked, looking around. "Welcome to my base of operations." "There's nothing here, though." "There's more than meets the eye here." As Derek said this, a panel on a nearby tree opened up, and Derek put in the code 6824. And suddenly, the ground opened up. They were standing on a bunker. The two entered the bunker, and the lights clicked on one by one. There were all kinds of equipment in the bunker. Guns, swords, knives, near everything you could imagine. "Wow, how did you get all this stuff?" Gregory asked in wonder. "Some of it I bought, some of it stolen. Made some of these myself, actually. This gun here," Derek said, holding up a Colt 45 pridefully. A year passed. One day, Gregory was training with Derek, throwing knives. "You know, I never asked why did you want to learn from me in the first place, let alone search for me this long," Derek asked Gregory. "I had a family once, and an evil man killed them. I promised I would avenge them, so I set out to find you and train under you and avenge their deaths," Gregory replied. "Really? Kid, if you want to be an assassin like me, you need to forget your family. They're dead. Get over it. There's no room for emotions in this business. No hate, no anger, no sadness, and no love. Got that?" Derek responded. "Yes, sir," Gregory replied sadly. Finally, Gregory's training was almost complete. 2 long years of training to become a living weapon, almost over. Gregory's task was to kill a high-value target for a rich client. "Okay, kid, you just gotta aim the sniper. Wait for him to walk into the scope, then boom," Derek said, trying to encourage Gregory. The target walked into the scope of the sniper. "Fire," Derek commanded, but Gregory hesitated. "What are you waiting for? Shoot him!" "No," Gregory responded. "No?" Derek replied, puzzled yet agitated. "I was a father. My son was murdered. I was a husband. My wife was murdered," Gregory replied, standing up. "No one deserves to go through what I did. If I kill that man, someone feels my pain. I can't let that happen. I was planning on doing this later, but I can't let you go. You're a criminal, and I will bring you in." "What?" Derek said, dumbfounded. "I should have known taking an apprentice was a bad idea," Derek said, annoyed. He then proceeded to attack Gregory, but Gregory dodged. The two fought relentlessly until Derek had Gregory backed into a corner, ready to push him off. But just as Derek tried to push Gregory off, Gregory moved out of the way, making Derek fall off the building. "No!" Gregory said, grabbing Derek's leg, saving his life. He then pulled Derek up back onto the building, before bashing his head into a vent, knocking Derek out. Later, the police arrived to find the legendary assassin barely conscious next to a sniper rifle. The police carted Derek to a hospital before going to prison. The next place on Gregory's list, Chicago. Chapter 5. The Chieftain. It had now been 3 years since the incident. Gregory had fixed his near-ruined company, studied many forms of combat, and vowed never to kill. Now he was going to Chicago to learn detective skills and psychology under Barry Jameson, the greatest detective in North America and ex-FBI. Once he arrived in Chicago, Gregory went to Barry's private eye business to hopefully schedule a meeting with him and ask to learn from him. Soon Gregory arrived at the office and spoke to the receptionist. "Hello, welcome to Jameson Private Investigations. How can I help you?" asked the receptionist. "I'd like to speak to Mr. Jameson, please. Is he available right now?" Gregory responded, feeling relieved at the receptionist's friendliness. "Let me check for you," she responded. Gregory sat down in the waiting room as the receptionist walked into the back room to ask Barry. She soon came back and told Gregory to go on in, opening the door for him. Gregory walked down the hallway into an open door on his right and into Barry's office. "So, what do you need?" Barry asked, sitting back in his chair. "Well, I would like for you to teach me how to do detective work, maybe a bit of psychology," Gregory replied. "So you want me to teach you how to do detective work and such? Why should I teach you? How do I know you won't backstab me?" Barry asked suspiciously. "What's your name, kid?" Simon Nason." Really nobody. Just an aspiring detective," Gregory responded. "Alright then, Simon," Barry said, surprised. "It reminded me of, myself when I was first learning. But I guess you gotta start somewhere, so I'll take you in." "Thank you, Mr. Jameson. I won't let you down," Gregory replied. "Please, just call me Barry. Barry, Mr. Jameson was my father," Barry said. They soon began training. Barry first taught Gregory how to do detective work. Barry took Gregory with him to a crime scene in an apartment. "You see, most criminals tend to be sloppy," Barry explained. "They'll leave fingerprints, DNA samples, everything you could need to catch them." Barry and Gregory walked into the bedroom to find the corpse of the victim. Gregory began to gag as the corpse was skinned and bloodied, with fingers and chunks of flesh cut out of it and laid in various places around the room. Barry didn't seem fazed by the corpse. "Looks like the chieftain's back at it again," Barry said, inspecting the body. "Who's the chieftain?" Gregory asked, after he finished throwing up. "He's a serial killer who recently broke out of prison. He skins the bodies of his victims and sacrifices them to ancient, Mesoamerican gods or something. I put him away last year, and if I'm not mistaken," Barry turned the corpse to reveal that the face had mostly been eaten. "He doesn't like to waste his food." "What do we do about this, though?" Gregory asked, alarmed. "Chieftain is never too far from the crime scene. He likes to see others' reactions to his handiwork." While saying this, Barry walked over to a window where the fire escape was and looked out the window. "There!" Barry opened the window and jumped out to pursue the fleeing criminal, with Gregory in tow. Soon, they had cornered the chieftain. "There's nowhere to go, chieftain. Just give up and let me take you back in," Barry negotiated. "Never! I must fuel the sun with blood," the chieftain said with a crazed expression. He was just a random white guy in what looked like a hodgepodge of Native American clothing, and he carried a knife. But he charged at Barry, who drew his gun and shot the chieftain in the kneecap. Gregory and Barry took the killer before anything to the hospital, where Barry's girlfriend, Jasmine Schmidt, was a doctor. He'll be fine in a week or two, and he'll be able to go to prison by Saturday, Jasmine explained. Thanks, Jazzy, Barry said. So, who's this guy? Jasmine asked, pointing at Gregory. It's Sam and Ethan. He's learning from me, Barry explained. Gregory trained under Barry and even learned basic medical procedures from Jasmine for the next 2 years. Soon, he had mastered detective work. It had now been 6 years since the death of Gregory's family. Gregory hadn't smiled since then. Gregory went to Miami to meet famous stunt driver Carrick McCann, who is sponsored by Mason Holland Incorporated. So Gregory could easily get professional driving lessons. One day, Gregory asked Carrick to meet him in his office after he won a race. What did you want to talk to me about, Mr. Mason? Carrick asked. I would like for you to teach me some of those stunts. I think that a thrill like that could take my mind off, well, Gregory responded. Oh, sure thing. When would that be good for you? Whenever you have time is fine, Carrick. So for the next 2 years, Gregory learned how to drive like a stunt double from Carrick. 8 years ago, that day that the tragedy occurred, Gregory had finished his training now. He started inventing his suit, gadgets, car, and even a motorcycle. Soon he had built his suit. A black cloth-like mask with white eyes that could track his facial expressions to convey emotion. Black jacket concealing his crimson belt, holding some of his gadgets like trick ace cards, a device that could attach to something, then press a button, and a grappling hook would shoot out, smoke pellets, sonar explosives, etc. Under his jacket, he had a white t-shirt to keep himself cool. He also had black pants and combat boots with cloth gloves that had padding on the knuckles to protect himself. His car, which seemed to be an unassuming black sports car, but it had bulletproof armor and explosion-resistant armor. It also had many gadgets, including grapples that came out of headlights to allow him to chase fleeing criminals easily. Small Gatling guns that also came out of the headlights which shot rubber bullets. An EMP missile, and a missile which shot out pure concussive force. A motorbike, which was extremely fast, but didn't have many bells and whistles. He also built himself a base of operations under his holiday home out in the woods of Florida, where he kept most of his other gear and such. All seemed to be going well, when one day Gibson checked the financials of the company and noticed odd purchases like EMP devices and armor plating, so he confronted Gregory about them. Hey, Greg, Gibson said to Gregory, walking into his office. Yeah, Gibbs, Gregory responded. What are these purchases? Why do you need EMP devices and armor plating? Okay, Gibbs, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. Gregory then explained what he was doing for the past few years. Now he planned to become a vigilante to bring Marksman to justice. Well, I knew Simon and Wendy's death hurt you, but I didn't think you'd go insane, said Gibson, concerned for Gregory's mental health. I may be insane for doing this, but it's the only way I can serve the justice Marksman deserves. Besides, the cops haven't been able to get a lead on him or his followers. They just seem to show up, cause chaos, and disappear. Gregory responded, rubbing his face and looking out his window on the city below. Well, if you're gonna do this, then I want to help, Gibson responded. Gregory turned to Gibson, puzzled. But why? I don't think it's a good idea to do this, Gibbs. You don't need to get involved. He took my brother. That's reason enough. I may not have your kind of training, but I can be your sort of guy in the chair and help you that way, Gibson replied. Okay then, Gregory said. I'm gonna have to change some things up, but if you're sure about this plan, we can do it. Chapter 6. The Ace. Chief Zachary Johnson pulled up to the scene of an investigation. "Chief Johnson, sir," said one of the police officers as Zachary walked up to the scene of the investigation. "What happened here?" Zachary asked the officer. "Some civilians reported a man dangling from a fire escape in an alley by his legs." "Is he still alive?" "The MEs we got out here says he's just knocked out from the blood rushing to his head. They also said he has a few bruises on his ribcage and a broken nose." Zachary wasn't sure what to make of this, so he decided to interview the victim. "What's your name, son?" Zachary asked the man who was getting medical attention. "What's it to you, cop?" the man responded hostilely. "Okay, we don't need your name. Just tell me what happened to you." Before the man could answer, a woman came up to Zachary. "He won't give you a straight story, officer," she said, glaring at the man. "He was trying to mug me. Then something came out of the shadows. I couldn't really tell if it was a person or what, but it was pitch black with glowing white eyes that moved and changed expression. It hit him a bit and put something on his leg that hoisted him up on the fire escape, upside down. Then he handed me a tape recorder and told me to get the police and give the tape recorder to them. Then he just disappeared into the shadows." "Well, looks like we have a phantom vigilante on our hands. You said it gave you a tape recorder, right?" Zachary responded. "Yes." "Could I see it?" Zachary asked. The woman then handed him the tape recorder. Zachary pressed play on the tape recorder, and the message on it said, "Hello, officer. I see you have found that mugger. I am Ace. I am here to hopefully end the crime wave in the city and restore it to its former glory. I intend to do so without killing anyone, and I hope that one day the RTPD and I can work together to bring in criminals, from this mugger to Marksman himself. I wish you the best, Ace." "Well, now we gotta deal with a masked nutjob beating up criminals. What's wrong with this city, I swear," Zachary said, distressed. The next day, a store owner reported that he was getting robbed, but someone helped him. Zachary went to investigate. "Oh, hello there, sir," said the owner of the store. "These hooligans were trying to rob my store, but a masked man came in and beat them up, like one of those superhero guys." "Did this man happen to be wearing a black mask with white eyes?" Zachary asked. "Yes, how did you know?" "Just a hunch," Zachary responded. "Can I take a look around?" "Sure thing, officer. If there is anything you need, let me know," the owner replied. Zachary looked around and found another tape recorder. He pressed play. "Hello, officer. It's Ace again. Once again, I stopped these guys robbing this store. Once again, I am hoping to earn the RTPD's trust and one day work alongside you. I wish you the best, Ace." "Who is this guy?" Zachary asked himself. A month had passed. Every day, the police would find that Ace had stopped a crime or saved someone, leaving voice recorders detailing what happened. One day, Marksman's followers appeared again. This time, for some reason, they were robbing the biggest bank in Redform, the Rhinestein Bank. The police, having had to deal with Marksman's followers' antics for around 10 years now, had a procedure just for them. They were ready. The police had the bank surrounded. This time they were going to get one of them. "We have hostages! Leave or we kill them all!" One of the followers yelled out of an open window. The police responded by trying to send a hostage negotiator in, but the followers killed him. "Greg," Gibson said over Ace's earpiece. "Yeah, Gibbs," Ace responded. "According to dispatch, Marksman's followers are robbing the Rhinestein." "Okay then. Let's do this." Ace drove his car to the bank and parked it a few blocks away. Ace then made his way to the bank rooftop, out of view from the police's helicopter. Ace looked down into the bank through a large glass dome-like window on the rooftop and confirmed that the robbers were indeed Marksman's men. He made note of each's position and pulled out a small circular device and placed it on the glass. He then pressed a button on it, and it erupted a sonar wave, shattering the glass. Ace dropped smoke pellets into the room below, blinding the men, and rappelled down into the fray. By the cover of the smoke, Ace dispatched many of the men. However, the smoke soon dissipated, revealing Ace to the men. The followers pointed their firearms at Ace. About to fire, Ace threw a card, a razor-sharp ace of spades, at one of the men, and it pierced his mask. Startled by the card, he fell back, knocking himself out on the floor. The men fired at Ace, but Ace was too fast and quickly got to cover. The men slowly walked over to where Ace was hiding, when he lunged out, knocking one of them out. He turned his sights to the man commanding them, who was running out of the back exit. Ace followed in pursuit. The police burst into the building after hearing the gunfire, only to find that all the attackers were all incapacitated, with various concussions and broken bones. The commander ran out of the bank and into a back alley where an escaped vehicle was waiting for him. "Agiator, Nook!" he yelled to the driver, who soon sped off down the street. The police, seeing this, followed in pursuit, with them calling in more units to help out. "Gibbs, get the car. I'm going after them," Ace said to Gibson, who used remote access to drive the car to Ace. Ace drove through the streets, hoping to cut them off. Meanwhile, the police were in hot pursuit of the men, when other armed cars pulled onto the street to aid in the escape. Soon, Ace pulled onto the street, pulling up next to one of the armored cars. "Take the wheel. I'm going up there," Ace said, unbuckling his seatbelt. "What are you doing?" Gibson asked. "I said I'm going up there," Ace replied, opening the sunroof and climbing on top of the car. "Get me close to the truck. It's a Turtle 100 armored truck. If I use an EMP on it, it'll stop it in its tracks. It's electric," Ace told Gibson. Gibson, driving the car via remote control, drove up next to one of the armored trucks. Ace jumped onto the top of the truck and started to set an EMP device to disable the vehicle. The back doors of the truck opened, and two Marksman followers climbed up to the roof to attack Ace. The men fired at Ace, but he narrowly dodged the bullets by clinging to the side of the vehicle. Then he shimmied his way to the back of the truck and surprise attacked the two men, smashing their heads together. Ace then threw the unconscious assailants into the back of the truck and continued arming the EMP, which was soon ready to activate. Ace once again climbed onto the side of the truck and pulled the driver out of the window, putting a device on his back that could launch a grapple to suspend the driver above the ground for the police to claim. Then Ace jumped back over to his car and re-entered it to continue the chase while the EMP disabled the car. "One down, two to go," said Ace as he strapped back into his seat and retook control of the wheel. Ace was gaining on the second truck fast, but they had seen what he did to their acquaintances, and they opened the back door and fired at Ace's car with their assault rifles. Luckily, the car was outfitted with armor plating that made it bulletproof. In response to this, Ace activated the Gatling guns, which fired rubber bullets at the men, causing them to close the doors and take cover. This gave Ace the chance to once again exit the car and climb onto the backside of the truck. He opened the doors and began to fight the men inside, knocking one's assault rifle out of his hands and taking the others and hitting the two men with the back of it. Soon they were incapacitated, and Ace began arming yet another EMP to disable the vehicle, when another of Marksman's followers came into the back of the truck and attempted to gun Ace down with an Uzi. Ace dodged the gunfire and gave the assailant a solid punch to the head, knocking him out. Soon, Ace had armed the EMP and dispatched the driver. In the same method as the last, but this time, hanging him upside down from a lamppost. Ace jumped back to the car, activated the EMP, and set off to take the last car down. This car was already very far ahead, and Ace and Gibson knew they probably couldn't catch up in time to stop them, so Ace fired a small missile out from under of his car, which released a non-lethal burst of force that caused the car to flip over and crash into a nearby shop. Luckily, no innocent people were hurt, and most of the men in the car were only unconscious, except for one man, the leader of the Marksman followers, who were robbing the bank. Ace stopped his car in front of the crash and got out and slowly walked over to the leader, who had just climbed out of the crashed vehicle and was sitting up against the car. "What are you?" the leader asked slowly after coughing a bit. "I'm just a man who's tired of you all terrorizing my city, and I'm just doing something about it," Ace replied, crouching down to the leader. "Now, how about we see who's behind that mask of yours?" Ace pulled back the mask, and under the mask was Darren Johnson, a security guard, who controlled the gate and at Checkpoint Charlie at the compound. He was thought to be dead all of these years, as they could never find a body, but he was an inside man the whole time. Ace stepped back from Darren, realizing that the man who had been so friendly with his son had partially been responsible for killing him. "Monster!" Ace growled. Darren looked at Ace puzzled, but Ace punched him in the head, knocking him out and leaving him for the boys in blue to handle. "Gibbs, we need to do some investigating on the staff," Ace said wearily. "Agreed. I'll get to work." Chapter 7. The Court of Demons. Soon after Ace had left the scene, the police had caught up and arrested the assailants, taking the leader in for questioning. Back at the police station, the officers questioning Darren weren't getting anywhere, so they brought in Chief Zachary Johnson, who was Darren's brother, to hopefully get something out of him. "Darren," Zachary said as he walked into the interrogation room and pulled up a chair. "How could you do this? You were hurting innocent people and I thought you were dead." Darren said nothing and kept his head down. "What led you down this path?" Zachary questioned. "What would Dad think?" "I'm sorry, Zach," Darren finally replied, "but I don't want to be on the wrong side of history." "What do you mean, Darren?" "Judgment Day is coming. Marksman is more powerful than anything you could imagine, and he will soon rule this world, and everyone who isn't a member of his Court of Demons will die." "Court of Demons? Is that what you call yourselves?" "No, he named us that. Please, brother, join us, and he will spare you when he comes to power." "Come to power? Rule this world? What are you talking about, Darren?" I've said too much. They can hear us, and they will come for me now." "Then tell me all you can, and we will protect you." Okay. Marksman is actually just then gunfire erupted from somewhere in the building. "They're here for me! Go, save yourself!" Darren said desperately. "No, I won't leave my brother to die to die," Zachary said sternly. "I lost you once, I'm not going through that again. Now get behind me." Just then, one of the Marksman's demons burst through the door. With lightning-fast hands, Zachary pulled out his gun and shot the demon directly in the forehead. Hearing this, other demons started advancing towards the room. Two demons walked into the room. Zachary shot and killed one of them, but the other managed to knock Zachary to the ground, dropping his gun. "Inveni qui incredilis est infideliter, Diome me," the demon said into his earpiece. Soon, Marksman himself walked into the room. "Ah, I see you were protecting your brother from us, Chief Johnson," Marksman said with a smirk just as arrogant as ever. "That's adorable, trying to defend your family, even though all the awful things they've done. It's touching, really. Let's give him a round of applause. The other demons with them began slow clapping, nice and condescendingly. Please, I'll go quietly if you spare Zachary's life. Just don't hurt him, I beg of you, my lord. Darren cried out, agonized. Very well, Marksman replied, intrigued. Your dedication for each other is admirable. He then turned to one of the demons and said, Prodetrium interferis pasitris montis. The demon then pulled out a pistol and executed Darren. He then pistol-whipped Zachary, knocking him out. Soon after, the demons left. Surprisingly, Darren was the only person who died in the attack. Chapter 8. Trust. The next evening, Gregory began investigating everything that happened the day of the attack in his penthouse in Upper Redfern, poring over security tapes, shipment logs, and even what was served at the cafeteria. When a news broadcast came on the television, Gregory had left on, reporting on a speech addressing the attack on the police station the previous day. Gregory wasn't too interested in the report until the mayor, Gene Erickson, called Zachary up to answer questions. Chief Johnson, one reporter asked eagerly, why exactly did Marksman attack the police station? Well, as you may know, we apprehended a suspect in Thursday's bank robbery and brought him in for questioning. We weren't able to get much information out of him except for that Marksman dubbed his followers the Court of Demons before said demons attacked the precinct and murdered the suspect. Zachary responded, clearly holding back tears. Mr. Johnson, do we know who the suspect was? Another reporter quickly asked. Zachary stood there and pondered for a second before saying, no comment, and walked off the stage, the crowd of reporters bustling, asking for one more question. Gregory knew how Zachary felt, and figured he could gain his trust if he gave him information on what they found. Like clockwork, Gibson called Gregory. Greg, Gibson said, distressed, come to my office at the headquarters. I found something ominous, to say the least. I'm on my way, Gregory replied. Gregory walked into the parking garage of the building he lived in and got into his car, a silver SUV Wendy used to drive, and headed toward the Mason & Holling Incorporated building, not far away. Soon Gregory entered Gibson's office. What did you find? Gregory asked curiously. Okay, so apparently one Darren Johnson was extremely interested in the dark arts and the occult, and he was a frequent attendee of the local Church of Satan, Gibson replied. Did you see the news report of the conference earlier today and how they were talking about demons and stuff? Gregory asked. Yeah, that's why this is a bit of a red flag for me, Gibson continued. What's even more alarming is that he was a devout Catholic, or so he thought, Gregory replied inquisitively. So that means Marksman must be connected to the Church of Satan somehow. Exactly. In fact, we own the databases the police keep their criminal records on. I was able to find out that the demons at the bank robbery were also involved with the church. Maybe Marksman manipulated them, Gibson replied. I'll have to look into it tomorrow. But you know how Darren is Chief Johnson's brother? Gregory asked. Yeah, of course, Gibson replied. Well, I think that I could appeal to him with my story and maybe gain his trust, Gregory replied. It just might work. If I were you, I'd go ahead and do it, Gibson replied. Later that night, Gregory drove out to the woods in the mainland of Florida, where he owned a small cabin in the woods that he and his family used as a holiday home before the tragedy, but was now where he kept his base of operations. Gregory walked over to a large bookcase and pulled a book titled Magic and Illusions, and a wall opened up into a metal room. Gregory walked into the room, and the wall closed back to its original state. The room was an elevator that brought him down into a large underground facility that held his vehicles and equipment. In this facility was a large glass case that contained his suit. He opened the case by putting his hand to a panel, which scanned his hand to verify his identity. Gregory then put the suit on and grabbed a few of his gadgets. He got into his car and began to drive through a tunnel that opened up into a closed road near the highway that led into Redfern. Soon, Ace arrived at Redfern and snuck into the police station, where he made his way to the medical examiner's office, where he found Gregory standing next to his brother's body. "Marksman took some people important to me, too, you know," Ace said, startling Zachary, who drew his gun at the vigilante. "Don't worry, I'm friendly, Chief Johnson," Ace reassured, Zachary holding his hands up in a surrendering motion. "How did you get in here?" Zachary asked, still a bit spooked. "I snuck in through a window, and I came to talk with you," Ace said, lowering his hands. "Marksman took my family from me. My wife, my kid, they died because of him. That's why I'm here, and I would like to work with you and the RTPD to apprehend Marksman," Ace continued. "Why should I trust you? How do I know this isn't a trap?" Zachary asked, lowering his gun. "Because I'm just a concerned citizen who wants help. I'll tell you what. If you can find evidence that Roberto Bianchi is a criminal and apprehend him, then I think I can trust you," Zachary said. Roberto Bianchi was the supposed godfather of the biggest organized crime ring in Redfern, and apprehending him with sufficient evidence to prosecute seemed impossible. I'll do it. Expect to find Roberto and evidence of his crime by the end of the month," Ace replied. "I'll see you then," Zachary said with a smirk. Chapter 9. An Impossible Task. "Greg, what did you just agree to?" asked the bewildered Gibson over Ace's earpiece. "The only chance we have at gaining the police's support," Ace replied, getting back into his car. "Let's get to work." Ace and Gibson spent the next week beavering away, trying to find an opportunity to expose the mob and their secrets. Soon, after much interrogating, Ace managed to find out that some of the underbosses were meeting up for a monthly report on what their crews had done, how much money they had gained, and such the next night at a restaurant the family owned. So, the next night, the three underbosses met up to exchange files and discuss matters. So, how's the month been treating ya?" one of the underbosses asked the two others. "This month has been amazing," one of the others replied enthusiastically. "Everything's working like clockwork." On a building nearby, Ace was scoping out the restaurant, which was on one of the top floors of a tall building. The walls were large glass windows that, with enough force, could easily be broken through. The underbosses had many bodyguards with them to keep them safe, and they had cleared out the room of all patrons, and the only civilians present were the staff, meaning that this didn't jeopardize many innocent lives, but Ace still had to be careful. Ace grabbed a special grapple which fired sideways, one side attached to the building he was on, and the other attaching itself to the concrete border above the window, and zipped across the gap between the two buildings, and broke through the glass window of the restaurant. But somehow the underbosses and their guards knew Ace was coming, and immediately started firing their guns at him. It was a trap. Ace dodged the bullets and flipped the table on its side to protect him. Soon the gunfire stopped. As the men were reloading, Ace took this as his chance and fought his way towards the underbosses and grabbed one of them. Then he dangled him out of the window. "All of you, put your guns down, or I'll drop 'em," Ace threatened. Of course, he wasn't going to drop him, as that would break his cardinal rule of not killing. But the bodyguards and underbosses didn't know that, so they dropped their weapons and surrendered, hoping to save their friend and or boss. Ace, thinking fast, then threw the underboss at the two others, knocking them over, and quickly dispatched the bodyguards before they could get their guns again. He zip-tied the underboss's hands and legs together so they couldn't escape, and he interrogated one of the bosses. "How did you know I was coming?" Ace questioned threateningly. "What? Did you think we wouldn't notice you attacking our business deals and interrogating one of our boys asking for the boss?" The underbosses replied with a smirk. We set this up hopefully to get you out of our hair, and those files will just lead you to another ambush." "You idiot!" one of the underbosses yelled from across the room. "You weren't supposed to tell him that part. No wonder the boss is looking for a replacement." "Wait, I wasn't supposed to say that." "You guys are really bad at all this," Ace replied, slightly amused. "The boss was gonna replace me? How could he?" the first underboss complained. Ace decided to leave the underbosses for the police, as he felt he was losing brain cells by the second. "Well, that was a dead end," Gibson said over Ace's earpiece as he was driving back to the cabin to retire for the night. "What do we do now?" "I'm not sure." "Maybe that one underboss would be willing to tell me more now that he knows Bianchi is replacing him," Ace replied. The next night, Ace once again snuck back into the police station, but this time he went to the holding cells, where he found the underbosses. Two were in one cell, sleeping, but the one who was being replaced was still awake in a separate cell. Ace approached the cell from the shadows, spooking the underboss. "What do you want?" the underboss asked. "Bianchi is replacing you. So, to get even, you could tell me where I can find him and evidence to convict him," Ace offered. "In return, not only will you be even with Bianchi, I'll see what I can do about reducing your sentence. Deal?" The underboss thought about this for a little bit before finally coming to a decision. "Fine, I'll do it," he said, quietly. "Go to 100 Slots Casino on Pine Street. If you get to the manager's office, there will be a safe hidden behind a painting. In that safe, there will be a few records of the boss's crimes. And this won't be enough to put him away for good. It's just a bit of tax evasion, but you will find the address to an apartment. We keep our main records there. Or you can find dirt on nearly every single boss family's had, and once you have all your evidence, you can arrest the boss. I don't know where he goes most of the time, but on Sunday nights, he goes to Redfern Cathedral to listen to the choir and do that confession booth thing. Thank you for your cooperation. I'll put in a word or two to the chief once this is all over," Ace said, walking away. One more thing, Mr. Ace," the underboss said. "Good luck." Ace turned and nodded, then disappeared into the shadows. Chapter 10. Conviction. After leaving the police station, Ace set out to 100 Slots Casino, the biggest casino in Redfern, with a slight reputation for being a hangout for many of Redfern's criminals. Ace pulled up to the casino, exited his car, and entered the casino. The bouncer at the entrance drew his gun at Ace, but Ace gave him a solid kick to the head, knocking the bouncer out. Ace fought his way through the casino, guard after guard, until he finally reached the main office of the casino. He entered the office and ripped a painting that was behind the manager's desk off the wall, revealing the safe. Ace opened the safe with relative ease, as the combination was 1234, and retrieved the files inside, and sure enough, the address of the apartment was in the folder. He then left the casino and set out to the address, which brought him to a rundown apartment in a shady part of town. This is the place, Ace said to himself, entering the apartment. I gotta hand it to him. No one would think that this were the Bianchi family's criminal record storage house. Ace skimmed through the filing cabinets looking for something on Roberto, but only finding small-time criminals that had already been arrested, until he found a file labeled Boss. Ace flipped through the file and found evidence on every boss the Bianchi family had, including Roberto. That's it, Ace said, pinning the file under his arm. Gibbs, could you get me on the phone with Zachary? Sure thing, Gibson said, dialing Zachary's number into the mask's phone. Zachary answered the phone. Chief Johnson, it's Ace. I've obtained evidence on Roberto Bianchi, and I'm on my way to apprehend him. Be ready, Ace said while driving to Redfern Cathedral. Okay, I'll prepare a cell for him, Zachary responded. Then he hung up the phone. Soon, Ace arrived at the cathedral and entered the building. It was about 8:50 and the church's main sermon was almost over. Ace didn't want to interrupt the sermon out of politeness, so he sat down in a pew near the back of the church, next to an elderly woman who stared at him, understandably dumbfounded. Do you come here often, sir? The woman asked. I used to, but I haven't been here since, 9, maybe 10 years, Ace replied. Before Simon and Wendy died, Wendy used to take him to the cathedral every Sunday. He never got the appeal of it, but still went because of how happy it made Wendy. The last time he was at the cathedral, it was for his wife and son's funeral. Well, I don't mean to be a nosy Nancy, but what made you come today? The lady asked curiously. Just have some business with the gentleman over there, Ace replied, pointing at Roberto Bianchi up near the front of the church. Before long, the sermon ended and people started filing out of the cathedral, including the elderly woman. While they were exiting, the children's choir walked onto the main platform and began singing hymns. Ace moved to the row of pews Roberto was sitting in and approached him. So, you're the Ace everyone's been talking about. And I assume you're here to bring me in, correct? Mr. Bianchi asked, watching the children sing. Yes, if you come quietly, maybe your sentence will be much shorter, Ace replied. Yeah, I'll come quietly. I know when to quit. But if I may, I want to listen to my daughter sing one last time before I go to prison, Mr. Bianchi said solemnly. Ace sat down next to Bianchi. Which one's yours? Ace asked, looking up at the choir. That one is Maria, said Bianchi, pointing to one of the older girls with long red hair and very pale skin, unlike Bianchi's. And that one is Stella, he said, pointing to a slightly younger girl with black hair and an overall appearance more similar to Bianchi. They're my pride and joy, and I don't want them to get scared by seeing me arrested, so please, make the arrest discreet. I understand. I used to be a father too, Ace said, looking downwards. I also used to be a husband, but one day everything just kind of fell apart, and now I'll probably never see my family again. Now, Mr. Ace, never say never. There's always heaven, Mr. Bianchi said reassuringly. Ace didn't really believe him, but still felt thankful. Thank you, Mr. Bianchi. If you weren't a criminal, I think we could have been good friends, Ace said, looking up again. Indeed, Bianchi agreed. Soon the children finished singing and headed off the stage. Do you mind if I do my confessions before we leave? Bianchi asked, getting up. Ace gestured at the confessional booth. The priest was entering, and the pair walked over, and Bianchi entered the booth. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 14 days since my last confession, Bianchi began. "What do you have to confess, my son?" the priest asked calmly. "I've done some awful things in my past and my present, and tonight I am being apprehended for my crimes, and before I am tried in the eyes of the law, I would like to be forgiven in the eyes of the Lord," Bianchi continued. "What are your exact crimes, my child?" the priest asked, still calm. "I do not remember every crime, but I have lied, stolen, killed, and gave orders for others to do those things," Bianchi said nervously. "Son, the Lord will forgive you no matter what you've done, but you must face the law and turn yourself in," the priest responded, slightly alarmed. Bianchi thanked the priest, and walked with Ace to his car and got inside. Soon they arrived at the police station, where Ace and Bianchi entered through the front door, where there were police waiting to take Bianchi in. Ace handed Zachary the evidence against Bianchi, and Zachary thanked him and said that he had gained the police's trust and support. Chapter 11. Lusitania. The next week, Gregory's brother-in-law's family was moving into Redfern, and he was going to help them unload the moving truck. While he was there, he took the time to catch up with them. "We really appreciate your help, Gregory," said Adrian Cyphers, his brother-in-law. "Hey, it's no problem. What's family for anyways?" Gregory replied with an attempted smile. Ever since the incident, he hasn't been able to truly be happy or really even smile. He was very, very depressed. Gregory and Adrian carefully lifted a couch up the stairs and into their new apartment, passed by Elizabeth, Gregory's niece, who was organizing their room, and by Diana, Adrian's wife, who was unpacking a box of cutlery, and finally placed the couch in the living room against the wall. Gregory then walked into Elizabeth's room. "How's my favorite niece been?" Gregory asked. "Oh, hey, Uncle Greg. I've been doing good. Kinda nervous, though," Elizabeth said, turning towards Gregory. "Oh, what's the matter, Ellie?" Gregory replied, concerned, and sitting down next to her. "Well, I guess I'm just kinda scared. Like, what if I can't make any new friends at my new school? I haven't had to try to make friends since, well, I can't even remember," Ellie replied, looking down. "Well, I'm sure making friends will be easy for you. I mean, you're probably gonna kill it on the softball field, so at least that's something," Gregory replied, reassuring Ellie. "Thanks, Uncle Greg," Ellie said, then continued sorting out her room. Gregory helped the Cyphers unpack all their stuff, and Diana offered Gregory to have dinner with them. "I would be delighted, Diana," Gregory accepted. Diana had done the catering for Holly and Lucas's wedding, and she was an amazing cook. But suddenly, Gibson called Gregory over his earpiece. "Greg, this is bad. You gotta get your suit quick," Gibson said, panicking. "What? What's the matter?" Gregory asked, alarmed. "Demons are attacking an orphanage." "Who the heck does that?" Gibson replied. "I'll be on my way," Gregory replied swiftly. "I'm sorry, Diana. I'm afraid that I can't stay for dinner. There's an emergency work and I need to be there like yesterday." Gregory apologized, rushing out of the door. Diana said she understood, and the family thanked Gregory for his help. Gregory rushed to his car outside of the apartment building, drove to a secluded area, and put on the Ace suit. Then, as Ace, he sped through the streets of Redfern, police sirens blaring in the distance, getting louder the closer he got to the orphanage. Soon, Ace arrived at the scene and got out of his car. Chief Johnson was already there. "Ace, thank God you're here," Zachary said with a sigh of relief. "Some demons just appeared over here. As far as we know, they've only killed a few caretakers, but they have many of the kids hostage." "I'll see what I can do." Could you try and stall for a while? Ace asked the chief. Sure thing. We have a hostage negotiator en route. Should be able to keep them occupied for a while, Zachary replied. Ace snuck around the back of the building and through an open window into a bedroom where the children usually slept. Gibbs, do you know where they are keeping the hostages? Ace asked. They seem to be in the cafeteria, which is down the hall, about 3 doors into the right, Gibson replied. Just then, Ace heard a small cry from under one of the beds. He investigated the noise and found a little boy quivering in fear under his bed. Hey there, little guy, Ace said in a soft voice he used when Simon was scared. It's okay. I'm here to save you and your friends. Can you do me a favor and climb through that window? Walk around to the front of the building with your hands up. There you're gonna find some policemen, and you should tell them exactly what you saw, okay? The child nodded and climbed from under the bed, and, with Ace's help, climbed through the window. After this was done, Ace slowly opened the door and looked into the hallway, where 2 demons were standing next to each other. Ace snuck up behind them and slammed their heads together, knocking them out. Ace continued down the hall and reached the cafeteria door. He looked through the door's window and saw that the demons had about 20 children hostage, meaning he couldn't just bust down the door. Ace had noticed that the ceilings were the type where individual panels could be removed, so he climbed into the ceiling and positioned himself above the cafeteria. Then he dropped down smoke pellets from the ceiling, filling the room with smoke and making it difficult for the demons to see. Ace then dropped from the ceiling, activated his mask's thermal vision, and quickly took down the demons before they even knew what hit them. Ace opened the cafeteria door to let the smoke out. He then picked up a radio one of the demons had used to give the police their demands, and told them that the demons had been taken out. Soon the police entered the building and helped the hostages. Zachary walked up to Ace and said, Good work, Ace. You probably wouldn't have saved those kids. But while Zachary thanked Ace for his help, a demon that they hadn't seen walked over to the entrance of the orphanage and opened his trench coat to reveal many explosives strapped to his body. And before blowing himself up, he cried out, All hail Lusitania, King of Demons! The explosion destroyed the front entrance to the building, but didn't do too much else. Looks like you missed one, Zachary said, rubbing his forehead, thinking about the amount of paperwork he would have to do now. Lusitania, Ace questioned. I thought they were part of the Church of Satan, maybe radicals of that. I'm sorry, what? Zachary asked, extremely confused. Ace realized that he hadn't really told Zachary about who the demons were. The demons, everyone we've arrested, has either had no kind of record at all, or has been part of, the local Church of Satan. And I believe they're terrorizing Redfern for some sort of radical religious purpose or something. But I can't really figure out what that purpose is, Ace explained. But that guy yelling something about someone named Lusitania, it throws everything down the gutter. Maybe they worship one of those, demons from, those, weird, mythologies or something from, Europe or whatever, Zachary suggested. I'm not sure, but that's a good place to start. I'll have to look into it, Ace replied, entering his car. Soon, he drove away. Gibbs, could you search Redfern Library's archives for this Lusitania character? Ace asked. Sure thing, Gibson replied. Let's see. They have one book that has a reference to Lusitania. It's a book called The Tales of the Mysterious Doggerland. Alright, I'll go check it out, Ace replied. The next day, Gregory headed to Redfern Library. Do you know where I can find a book called The Tales of the Mysterious Doggerland? Gregory asked the librarian, who was reading a book. The book is only available for library members. Do you happen to have a card? The librarian asked, still not looking up from his book. Gregory handed his library card to the librarian, and the librarian scanned it. "Okay then," the librarian said, looking up at the screen that showed the books that the library had stuck. "Mr. Mason, looks like there is only one copy left. Would you like to rent the book?" "Yes, please," Gregory replied. "Alrighty, then you're all set. Enjoy," the librarian said cheerfully. Gregory left the library and headed back to his penthouse, where he and Gibson met up to comb over the book. They skimmed through the book looking for a reference towards Lusitania. They found things about elementals and magic, but nothing about Lusitania. Then they came upon a chapter named The Demons of Doggerland. They skimmed through the chapter when Gregory came upon a passage which he read aloud. In the mythos of Doggerland, demons were depicted in a manner only comparable to John Milton's Paradise Lost. The people of this submerged subcontinent thought that demons were essentially humans in appearance, but with a few key differences. Every demon either had yellow, purple, red, or white irises, sharp teeth, and pointy ears. Some demons had tails, some had horns, and some were depicted as having neither of those traits. The demons' tails were long and floppy, with their ends being often spaded or arrow shapes. The horns of all demons who had them were part of their skeleton, but not bones, similar to the teeth, and they protruded out of their foreheads and then upwards. The demons seemed usually to be a fully united race, unlike humans, and were ruled by a demon king. A common trait in these kings is a name, Lusitania. One king, Lusitania, was the 87th king to be named such. Some stories researchers have found in Doggerland's ruins have suggested that the demons disappeared from Earth, but somehow showed up from time to time and caused problems. A common way the heroes of these stories vanquished them was by electrocuting the demons. The church must have been tricked into helping Lusitania. Maybe he was masquerading as Satan, Gibson pondered. That's probably the case, Gregory replied. In that where it says about demons being smitten or like electrocuted, it could come in handy, I think, Gregory said. The next week, Mason and Holland Incorporated was holding a special ball in memory of those who were lost in Marksman's attack on the compound 10 years ago, and Gregory was attending. Of course, he was on high alert, as this was a prime target for Marksman's next attack, and in preparation, he had the ace suit and a few gadgets stashed nearby. After a small amount of time, the event was ready to begin. Gregory walked up onto the stage to give speech. 10 years ago, Marksman killed many people, 2 of which included my wife, Wendy, and my son, Simon. The loss greatly affected my mental health, and still haven't really felt truly happy since then. But our lost loved ones and co-workers wouldn't want us to wallow in grief. So tonight, we will celebrate in their memory, Gregory said. Then another survivor of the attack came up to give a speech. But Gregory saw, lurking behind the curtains, a demon. He made his way to the men's bathroom and into an out-of-order stall and retrieved his suit. Meanwhile, demons stormed the party, and Marksman himself walked on stage and took the mic. Fancy parties, overpriced miniature food, extravagant outfits. You gotta love 'em. Marksman said arrogantly. I remember 10 years ago, I made that explosive debut and killed a few of those Mason Industries nerds, but let's be honest, who really cared about them? Anyways, tonight I think we should be celebrating me, gracing you peasants with my presence. With maybe a blood sacrifice of all of you. Maybe. Just then, smoke pellets dropped from behind the curtains and filled the room with smoke. Domin non est ace nos relicus satim, one of the demons called out. Nonsense! Marksman yelled back. I want to see this ace everyone's so scared of. Muzzle flashes appeared from the smoke as the demons blindly fired their weapons, hoping to hit Ace. However, Ace quickly defeated all of them, and soon the smoke had cleared up, and there Ace stood, looking up at Marksman on the stage. Well, Marksman said, slowly clapping. If it isn't Ace, to what do I owe the pleasure of being pursued by this dashing, roguish vigilante? You killed my family. The least I can do is bring you to justice, Ace replied. Surrender now, and you won't be hurt. Oh, I'm so scared, Marksman mocked. Oh, won't somebody save me from the big, scary vigilante? Oh, woe is me. Marksman then pulled out a pistol and shot at Ace, but he only shot through Ace's jacket. Ace then rushed the terrorist and grabbed his hand the gun was in and kicked Marksman in the stomach, forcing him to drop the gun. Then, with a big right hook, Marksman knocked Ace to the ground. But Ace pulled off Marksman's trench coat, revealing a long floppy tail with a spade shape at the end. Marksman quickly put the trench coat back on, slightly embarrassed, and said, I'll see you all again on the anniversary. Goodbye. He fled the scene without a trace. Ace picked himself up again and rubbed his sore head. So that's what it feels like, Ace said, mildly annoyed. Is everyone okay? He yelled out to the crowd, and everyone nodded. Soon the police arrived along with paramedics, who checked on the patrons. Zachary walked up to Ace. What happened? He asked. Well, I knew this party was a prime target for the demons to attack. Just didn't expect Marksman to come here in person, Ace replied. I wasn't able to catch him, but I think I know who he is. Who is he? Zachary asked, curiously. Just so I confirm, could you hand me your taser? Ace asked. Zachary reluctantly agreed, and Ace tased one of the demons, causing them to disappear into ash. Just as I thought, said Ace. The demons are actual demons, and Marksman is their king. What are you talking about? Zachary asked, bewildered. Have you gotten insane or something? No, I can explain, Ace said, handing the taser back. He then explained what he had learned about Lusitania and demons. So, in conclusion, Marksman is actually the king of demons named Lusitania, and his followers are real demons and members of the Church of Satan. Okay, so we've been dealing with a near, godlike demon, and we've been holding our own against them. Zachary asked, still a bit perplexed. Essentially, yeah, Ace replied. I guess I have no choice but to believe you, since you literally tased that demon thing into dust, Zachary replied. Should also say that he said something about seeing us again on the anniversary. I'm assuming the anniversary of his first attack, he said. That's in a week. We're gonna need more tasers. But the mayor won't give us funding like that just on a hunch by a rogue vigilante, Zachary pondered. Don't worry. If we can get to Lusitania and send him back to hell, odds are his demons will probably retreat and go back with him, Ace replied. Well, we better start planning, Zachary remarked. Indeed, Ace agreed. Chapter 12, In the Darkest Hour. During the week leading up to the anniversary of the attack, Ace had created a bow staff that had the ability to let out electric charges with every hit. The more kinetic force let out by the hit, the stronger the charge. The day before Marksman was set to attack again, Gregory and Gibson met up to discuss their strategy for the battle. "Gibbs," Gregory said while they were planning, "I've been thinking, if Lusitania is the king of demons, maybe bring my family back somehow?" "Well, I'm not too sure about that, Greg," Gibson replied. "Book said that he was the king of demons, not like hell or anything. And even if he was the king of hell, I don't think he could bring them back, because I don't think they went to hell in the first place. It's worth a shot though, maybe. I don't know." Gregory nodded in silence, thinking about his family. The next day was the anniversary of Marksman, or rather, Lusitania's first attack. Ace, Gibson, and the police waited and waited and waited. Nothing happened all day, until all of the clocks in Redfern struck, reading 3 in the morning. And the temperature became unusually crisp. Then, at that very moment, gunfire began. Racing through the streets were demons in armored transport cars, firing upon every living being they could find. This was Lusitania's final assault. Ace set out in his car after one of the demons' cars, while the police pursued the remaining few. Ace leaped on top of the car, bow staff in hand, and cleared the gap between the cars, and proceeded to electrocute the demons, knocking one out, but turning the others into dust. Ace then took control of the vehicle and stopped it successfully. Meanwhile, the police had managed to stop the other vehicles, but just as quickly as they stopped the cars, out of every place that was black and dark and shadowy, more demons emerged and began causing pure, unrivaled chaos. The demons beat, shopped, and robbed the innocent citizens of Redfern. As this chaos ensued, a voice came over every radio, television, and screen in the city. "Citizens of Redfern and Earth alike, I am Lusitania, the king of demons, and I am here to conquer the earth and bring hell upon this place. Now, if I may address the wonderful law enforcement and that insolent so-called hero Ace, you have 2 options. 1, you surrender the city to me, and I may spare your insignificant lives along with the citizens you hold dear. Or 2, you can come to the good old nuclear power plant. You have to face me. Of course, inevitably losing, and forcing me to slaughter everyone in this city. It's your choice. Ta-ta." Ace and Zachary met up with each other to discuss what they should do. "If we surrender, he's not going to spare anyone," Ace said. "There's a chance that he will. I don't think we should risk it," Zachary added. "But he's a demon. He can't be trusted for anything but causing chaos for his own amusement," Ace argued. "Look, I don't care what you guys do, but I'm going to the power plant and ending this. It's our only chance, so you can either sit here on your behinds, or you can come and take a stand against this bastard." Ace then stormed off to his car. He was about to enter his car when Zachary yelled out, "Wait!" Ace paused, and Zachary ran over. "We're with you. Either we take this guy down, or we just let ourselves be killed." Ace nodded at Zachary, and Zachary turned and yelled to his officers, "All right, everyone, we're taking a stand against Lusitania, and if you aren't joining us, hand in your badges and service weapons, and consider yourselves fired." No one handed in their badges, but they all gathered around Zachary and Ace to hear the plan of attack. "Okay, everyone, here's the plan," Ace told the policemen and women. "We're going to need a large group of you out there in the streets, keeping the civilians safe. Odds are all of these demons are running around the streets are real demons, so if you tase them, they will turn to ash. So keep your tasers loaded because they are your best friend right now. Now, the rest of you will help us with defeating Lusitania. We need a group of you to evacuate the surrounding area in case they try to blow up the core. We need another group to prevent reinforcements from aiding the demons. And finally, the rest of you will provide suppressing fire so I can get in and send Lusitania back to hell. Any questions? The brave men and women of the RTPD shook their heads no, and they sent out to the power plant. Ace knew his car wouldn't give him the nimbleness he needed to navigate the power plant when it was infested with demons, so he used his motorcycle. Soon they arrived at the power plant, and once again, Lusitania's voice came over the police's radios. I see you have chosen. It's a shame. I very much enjoyed toying with you all. You know, humans never seem to give up. Well, most of you at the least. But that's your greatest flaw. You can't just accept your death. Then the demons at the gate opened fire, and everyone ducked for cover, except for Ace, who was racing through the crowd of demons, electrocuting any demon in his path, turning them to dust. He even grabbed one by the collar of its trench coat, dragging it through the crowd, before letting it go at the turn. Before long, Ace slammed down the door to the room Lusitania was hiding in. Well, well, well. Look what the cat dragged in, Lusitania remarked smugly. I suppose you think you can stop me, correct? I don't think I can, replied Ace with a wave of anger unlike any other, welling up inside of him. I know. Ace charged Lusitania and uppercut him in the chin, knocking Lusitania's mask off, revealing the sharp teeth and colored eyes of the demon. After noticing those features, Ace noticed that he was a grotesque, rotting corpse. I was planning to use a new vessel for this little venture of mine. Of course, you know I wouldn't have come here in my regular form, and I could have been killed. But either way, my old vessel I was making to transfer my consciousness in got exercised, so I wasn't able to use that, so I used this corpse I found. It isn't the nicest thing, but it will have to do. Lusitania kicked Ace in the face, knocking him to the ground. Why do you even bother? Lusitania asked. Why would you want to go after little old me? You, Ace said, picking himself up from the ground. You killed my family, Ace said angrily. Do you have the slightest idea how little that doesn't narrow anything down? Lusitania laughed. Maybe this will jog your memory, Ace replied, removing his mask. You messed with the wrong man, Lusitania. Now you're gonna pay. Lusitania was slightly shocked, yet pleasantly amused to see Gregory. Mr. Mason, I should have known. Ace put his mask back on and pulled out his bow staff and electrocuted Lusitania, but he didn't turn to dust. Ha! Lusitania mocked. Do you think that will work on me? Come on, I'm the king of demons. I'm much tougher than that. Lusitania then pulled a saber from his belt, and Ace and he fought it out on the catwalk above the reactor. He swung his staff at Lusitania as he blocked with the saber. This went on for a while until they both men pushing to disarm their opponent. Suddenly, Ace lost his grip of the staff, and it fell into the reactor below. Meanwhile, Gibson heard the door to his apartment bust open, and the screams of his husband. He went went out to investigate, to be met with two demons who had broken into his home and held his husband hostage. The demons attacked Gibson and soon had him hostage too. One demon walked over to the computer console Gibson used to speak with Ace. "We have your little friend. There's no hope now," the demon said into the mic. Outside the power plant, the police were starting to be overwhelmed by the demons and began to lose hope. Lusitania began the monologue. "You see, he couldn't have stopped me in the first place. Just give up. My demons have a friend, you are at my mercy, and the police are about to be overrun and wiped out. The only thing that could save you now is divine intervention, and you sure aren't getting that. Just give up." Ace began considering giving up. All hope was lost. There was nothing he could do to stop Lusitania. He had failed. Chapter 13. Hope Will Rise. Ace began to accept his failure and death. "It won't be so bad," he thought, trying to comfort himself. "I'll be with my family again, even though I couldn't avenge them." Just then a bright light shone, only visible by Ace. And through the light came the spirits of Wendy and Simon. "Don't give up, Greg," Wendy's spirit encouraged. "You aren't done yet." "Yeah, Dad," Simon chimed in. "You can beat him. You're big and strong." Ace began to tear up at the sight of his family. "I will finish this," Ace said, tears filling his eyes. "I promised you." The apparitions faded away into the light, and Ace felt fully rejuvenated. Ace dodged Lusitania's blade as it was brought down upon him, and swept the Demon King's legs, causing Lusitania to fall on his back. How did you?" Lusitania stuttered out. "There's one thing you got wrong, Lusitania," Ace replied. "Hopelessness. It's just an illusion. It's not real. There will always be hope, and I am here to bring it." Ace picked Lusitania up, ready to chop him off the catwalk and into the reactor below, hopefully sending him back to hell. "No! No!" Lusitania panicked. "Lord Evil, please forgive me. Let me win. I will bring you great glory." Ace lugged Lusitania off the catwalk, but Lusitania managed to catch himself and hold on to the floor of the catwalk. "No! Don't do this! You're making a mistake!" Lusitania yelled, still panicking. Ace refused to listen to Lusitania's plea. "Go back to where you came from, and never, ever come back. If you won't, I won't be so merciful," Ace threatened. Ace then stomped on Lusitania's fingers until he was forced to let go and fall into the reactor. With his final words, he vowed that he would return to soon bring hell upon the world. After Lusitania's scream stopped, the demons across the city began disappearing into dust. The few humans in the court of demons were swiftly apprehended. Redthorn was saved. Epilogue. Later in the week, Governor of Florida, Gene Erickson, held a rally where he first announced that he was running for president that year, but then thanked Ace for saving Redthorn. "Whoever you are, wherever you are, Ace," the governor spoke, "I, Gene Erickson, not only pardon you of any and all crimes you may have committed, but I thank you for stepping up and taking a stand against, well, whatever those things were. Bless you, Ace. Bless you." Meanwhile, Gregory was visiting Simon and Wendy's grave, where he promised as long as he lived he would protect the weak and innocent of Redthorn and the world whenever he could. Then he laid a single rose on the grave and left to speak with Gibson. Gregory told Gibson that he should probably stop helping him so he can stay safe, and Gibson agreed. From that day onward, Ace protected the innocent and weak, whether it was from a mere mugger or the king of demons himself. He was there to keep them safe. Now, this marks the end of this story. But not all stories have ended, and Lusitania will one day return. But for now, this is the end.